Now, I've gone over Scream 6 before in this show. The budget on the movie was 35 million. The box office was 169 million. Really great for a slasher film. And as I said before, there were some percentages from certain sources, as far as the reviews, that were higher than I thought they would be for a movie like this. Because now part of me is so cynical that it's like, okay, I know that horror slasher films definitely are on the low end of the spectrum when it comes to, popularity with a lot of different movie genres, especially in comparison to action and, romance and drama, even comedy. So I'm looking at the reviews of this movie. And keep in mind, I did another video that was dedicated to the criticisms of Scream 5, my response to the criticisms. And I decided to do that with Scream 6. So to go over the numbers again, Metacritic gave it a 61%, Common Sense Media gave it a 60%, Internet Movie Database gave it 65, Rotten Tomatoes gave it 76, which is probably about right or maybe somewhat slightly better than I thought they would have given it. At first, I'm thinking they might give it a 60 to 65%, maybe 70% if they're being nice, but they gave it 76, so okay, that's a passing grade for them. Google users gave it 75%, and IGN actually gave it a 90%. Probably the highest rating I've ever seen on any horror film, or especially a slasher film. So they got a lot of good people working there, a lot of horror fans working at that place. Now, movie was wildly successful for what it was. We know who the stars were: Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. They starred as Sam and Tara in the movie. Of course, you had Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding. They played Mindy and Chad. Hayden Panettiere reprised her role as Kirby. Courtney Cox as Gail. And then, of course, you had some newer characters come here. So you had Devin Dakota play Annika. That was Mindy's girlfriend. And then, of course, spoiler alert, just for those of you who didn't see it, there's going to be some spoilers here, so I'm going to talk about that. The movie's been out for over a year now, so if you don't want to hear the spoilers, cut the video off right now. To those of you who've already seen it, you don't care, you've already seen it. So you had the three killers, who were Wayne, Ethan, and Quinn, played by Dermot Mulroney, Jack Champion, and Liana Liberato. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. One person said Liberto, but that's neither here nor there. So let's get to what I found some of the 1 stars on Google had some interesting comments, and I'd like to respond to some of it, if I may. One person here named Johnny says, literally one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen. It was borderline a comedy. There were some comedic moments, I'll give you that. I brought a friend, and at the end, they had confused it with scary movie because they had thought there's no way something that bad could be considered scary. The only thing that helped this movie was the fact that it at least partly made fun of itself. That's what the Scream franchise does. They have a lot of the tropes and the stereotypes. Girls are always running and fall down and things of that nature. And by the way, this isn't intended for me to criticize the movie. You already know how I feel about the Scream movies. All the Scream movies, in my opinion, I have a biased opinion. They all get a 10 from me, except for the third one that gets like an 8, 8.5. The fifth one gets like 9, 9.5. All the other ones get a perfect 10 from me. The TV show gets a perfect 10 too. Just wish it went on longer. So, this person said, the female cop, Kirby, is dressed in a costume for the bootleg version of Catwoman. Okay, I'm not too sure about that. By the way, she was an FBI agent, so what do you think she was going to wear? Like, well, she was supposed to wear, like, what, a tank top and leggings or something like that, or skirt or whatever. She's an FBI agent, so of course she was going to wear black jeans, had the black boots and everything, and had the black leather jacket, all that stuff. Let's see. The other cast members were wearing clothes all over the place, making it seem like the actors just show up in what they were wearing day one and started shooting again. I don't know what you expect them to wear. Like, what are these people? Are they supposed to be wearing suits and ties or tuxedos or wedding gowns or dressed up like lawyers? Or like, what do you expect them to dress as? I mean, this is a horror film, a slasher film where people are getting stabbed and killed left and right. So is the climate hot or cold? The lead guy, Chad, is in a hoodie, and one lead gal in a belly shirt. I think he's referring to Sam. Okay, maybe he likes hoodies. Maybe he likes that hoodie or something. I don't know. I think that's kind of overreaching right there. I think that's kind of just nitpicking it. But I mean, hey, to every opinion is to each his own. So I'm not downing this person or discrediting them, whatever. I understand it's for the sex appeal, but seems lowbrow. I'm not too sure about that one. If they wanted to really up sex appeal, they could have done more for it. This is actually one of the few slasher film franchises that didn't, go the same route that Freddy, Jason, and Michael did, where people were, you know, actually having sex or like shown sex or, showing blatant nudity or anything like that. None of that was there. The women in this movie talk about being sexually free and strong, yet make fun of the male antagonists for quote unquote dying a virgin. Guys, I don't know if my memory is acting up. I know I'm getting older, but I don't remember anything in the movie that talked about a woman being like them being sexually free. I haven't heard that part. I mean, there was a part in the movie where they were in the apartment and Sam talked about how she had been sleeping with the guy next to. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I take that back. I don't know why that was blanking on my memory. I told you I'm getting older. My memory's getting affected. No, I think he's referring to Quinn, and Quinn was the roommate before they discovered she was the killer, and she was basically saying that she was bringing in different guys and she was having sex with, different guys, whatever. Mindy referred to her as slutty, but she was basically, Quinn was saying, actually, I'm more sex positive. I'm like, okay, so being sexually free and strong yet make fun of, but she wasn't the one who made fun of the guy who was the virgin, which by the way was her brother Ethan, also a killer. That was actually Tara that said that as she was killing him. So, okay, let's go on. This person also said, hold on, I almost lost it. I guess the way to be cool is to have as much sex as possible. Now, aside from the movies, in real life, I mean, yeah, I could agree with that to a degree where it's like, okay, if you are just a person who is only cool just because you're having a lot of sex, then, I mean, a lot of people would argue, that's really not cool. There's a lot of stuff out there, but I digress a little bit. The sound effects are so bad that during a possible heartfelt talk, the music begins to play a near identical tune to the Apple iPhone alarm clock, which had more than a few people checking their phones. Yeah, I think that's a little bit overreaching right there. I think the sound effects actually were good, but then again, I may not be a person who calls myself an expert when it comes to sound effects and movies and whatnot. So maybe there's something there, that I don't. And by the way, I don't remember anybody checking their phones. And then again, in the movie theater, and everybody's paying attention to the big screen. I have an Apple, I have an iPhone, and I didn't check my phone for it. But again, to each his own. That's anecdotal. So what you might have experienced in that movie theater is different than what I experienced in there. I mean, my eyes were glued to the screen, mainly because I am a hardcore fan of slasher horror films, especially Scream. The special effects, hold up a second, take people's alarm clock, checking their phones. Brilliant move, honestly. Take people's attention away so they can forget what they're watching. Well, if you want to just forget what you're watching and you don't like the movie that much, then just get up and leave the theater. Or if you suspected it was going to be this bad, you could have just waited till it came on stream and you could have watched it for free. Sign up for Paramount Plus, do the 1 week free trial, and then just cancel it. And then boom, you didn't waste any money. You might have wasted time if you didn't like it, but at least you would have spent $7-8 on a ticket. So I don't know, to each his own. The special effects were also under the impression that blood somehow never dries or looks like red water. They need to see someone get shot in real life so they can learn a thing or two about blood, because that looked like the ding dang strawberry sour gel from 7-Eleven. Wow. This person is an expert when it comes to criticism. I'll tell you that right now. As far as I mean, again, I think this is the obvious part. I don't think I have to say this. I think almost anybody who watches almost any movie knows this. But, I mean, of course, there's going to be something there that when you see blood in a movie, and it doesn't even have to be a horror film. It could be any movie where there's blood. I mean, any action thriller film that you've seen. I mean, you talk about movies like Taken, movies like Mission Impossible, or, Terminator, or just whatever it is, Matrix, anything where you see blood and you just look at it like, that just looks so real. I like how they did that. We know it's not blood. It's whatever, something they put juice or red paint or dye or whatever it is. In the first Scream movie, Billy Loomis had the blood on his shirt and he was like corn syrup. Same stuff they used in pig's blood for the movie Carrie. That's true, they did use that. So, again, I think you're overthinking it, but much respect. So, the plot along with the events, why do I keep losing this? What's happening here? Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, I'm messing up right now. The plot along with the events, how they happened, was about as predictable as the 75th time you watch Toy Story. Even hardcore Scream fans couldn't necessarily predict. I guess it depends on what you're talking about predicting in terms of how the sequences in the scenes are going to go, or in terms of who the killers are going to be. In terms of who the killers are going to be and why they became the killers, there might be, I would say probably 10%. I would even go so far to say maybe even 20% Scream fans probably could have guessed, who the killers were based on what happened in the previous movie. But about 80% of fans were surprised at who the killers were and what the motives were and how they were related to somebody from the previous film. Which anybody who's a Scream fan knows that it's an homage to the killer in Scream 2 being related to the killer from Scream 1. So, continuing. The dialogue was probably written by a freshman film studies major because I'm pretty sure they crammed in every cliche or rhetorical expression that exists. Lines in this movie seriously include, "You mess with my family, you die. I got tired of being scared, so I became feared. And I'm better than my father." Well, those lines were put in there because they were relevant to what was going on in the movie. So there's a lot of movies that use similar lines. So it's not like going into this film, I expected like everything was going to be 100% groundbreaking or original. I didn't expect any of that. I just went in there to be entertained, know who the killers were, and basically just enjoy in that moment. Believe me when I tell you, if I could see it again in theaters, I would. I'd see all the Scream movies in theaters again if I could. I'd definitely do that. It was seriously a script that never should have made it to theaters. Well, too bad it did. And it made a good success. $35 million budget, $169 million box office. If you don't believe me, watch Hayden Panettiere's face anytime she speaks. She looks to be fighting a gag. The main characters are also really hard to like, so you begin to root against them. This is partly because their villain is equally as bad as they are, and the main characters do not seem to have any redeeming qualities. The main messages I found in the movie were: women are loose, do not trust Latino men, white people are killers, cops are not to be trusted, saying I have a gun means people should give you respect, and that African American women like drugs. However, I don't know if that's what they intended. All right, so let me go over each of those things. I think that's a little bit looking into it, and I think I would almost, if I didn't know any better, I would almost say that this person is almost implying that they think that they snuck in a little bit of wokeness in the movie. Again, I hate to go into that discussion, but we know what that means. Oh, stereotypes this and blah, 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 and all black people think that all white cops are bad and blah. Let's go over each of those. It says here, women are loose. Well, let's see. There was only one female character in the movie that admitted to being loose, and that was Quinn. And as far as Sam's character, well, her boyfriend from the 5th movie turned out to be a killer. So, of course, she ended up killing him. And then she is dating this guy here, Danny, in the 6th movie, and she admitted to sleeping with him. I don't see that as being loose, per se. And he was a red herring, but he turned out to not be a killer, just like Derek's character from Scream 2, red herring. Mainly because of the Billy Loomis thing. I see why people suspected him. But do not trust Latino men. So I think the whole thing about that was, it wasn't he can't be trusted because he's Latino. It was, hey, your boyfriend in the last movie was a killer, or your last boyfriend was a killer, so this one right here, we got to remember what Mindy and Dewey said from Scream 5 and Scream 6, which is basically never trust a love interest. It was because he was her boyfriend. So he could have been black, he could have been white, he could have been Mexican, Asian. That part of the plot would have been exactly the same. So those two things are off. It says right here, another message is that white people are killers. Well, let me tell you. So with the Scream franchise, obviously with most of the cast being white, if somebody in there is going to be a killer, yeah, there's a good chance the killer's probably going to be white. A good chance. And we're just talking about this movie here, slasher films. So, but then you also got to remember, also a lot of white people were getting killed. Now, I don't know if this person saw the first 5 Scream movies, and if he didn't, I mean, hey, everybody sees what they see. They don't see what they don't see. But you look at the first Scream movie, it was pretty much an all-white cast between Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Drew Barrymore, all-white cast. So yeah, there were 2 white killers in there, which was Skeet and Matthew, but then you had white people getting killed off, like Rose McGowan and Drew Barrymore. David Arquette's character, Dewey, he almost got killed. So, again, and by the way, in the TV show, you had in the 3rd season of Scream, in the TV show, one of the characters who was a killer actually was black. And guess who he was played by? Tiger. So, and I thought that was interesting. Let's see, what else here? Another message here is that cops are not to be trusted. Well, let's be honest. You have 2 major cop characters in, well, actually 3 if you include Judy Hicks. Judy Hicks, Dewey Riley, and then you have Wayne Bailey. Well, it turns out that Judy and Dewey were respectable, trusted cops. They were good, and they were there to protect their town of Woodsboro, and they protected their friends. Well, turns out that the cop in this movie was a killer. So clearly, I mean, what do you want me to say about that? It's so just because this one guy was a cop and he turned out to be a killer, somehow that gives you the idea that, oh, this movie's just giving the message that cops aren't to be trusted because all cops are bad. Yeah, again, and like you said, to be fair, now this person also said, I don't know if that's what they intended. I would agree with you on that part right there. I don't think that that's what they intended. And I've watched a lot of podcasters and YouTubers and people on Reddit and all these different sources talk about the movie. I didn't hear one person say, yeah, this movie's message was cops are bad and they can't be trusted. If that was the case, then why was Dewey good? Why was Judy good? So, and why was Kirby good after she became an FBI agent? So, he says, all in all, I think the movie was bad. The camera work, however, I did like. All right. Another person here says, Jacob says, I don't watch horror movies consistently and have not seen any of the previous Scream films, so watching Scream 6 for the first time had me excited. However, this movie was total disaster. So bad, in fact, I ended up laughing uncontrollably from how unbelievably frustrating it was. Nothing more, a lot less. From beginning to end, the movie was chock full of typical horror movie cliches such as lights flickering. Yeah, that happens in a lot of horror movies, and that's to build the suspense. Let me see. Villain accent. Characters. Well, I don't know how you want the villain to talk. I don't know. I mean, you listen to the way Freddy Krueger talks. You listen to the way Ghostface talks. Of course, we know that Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers don't talk, so there's no dialogue there whatsoever. But how do you want Ghostface to talk? Like, yes, Sydney, what's your favorite movie? Anybody who's a Scream fan gets that. If you haven't seen the other Scream films, you didn't get that. But Jason and Greg, we're going to kill you. I'm going to kill you and your sister. And we almost killed Sydney. Gail and Dewey are going to die today. Does that sound like somebody who, like, when you hear somebody say it like that, you can't take it seriously. In that case, it would become a comedy. It would be Scary Movie, basically. So, all right. But hey, all opinions welcome. And by the way, anybody who sees this video, you comment, you tell me what you thought about Scream 6 and what do you think about these comments I'm reading here. The acting was more than subpar as each actor/actress had a trouble portraying fear and distress. However, they were pretty capable of shedding tears to show bravery among the we're not friends, we're family scenes. Despite all of these flaws, this could have been argued over so long as the killing was unbiased, but this too was an issue. I assume that in order to thicken the plot, the directors tried curating a plan for the villains to have reason to kill off side characters before the main characters, but it just did not make sense whatsoever. The villains had multiple opportunities to finish the job they so desired, but didn't because I assumed the movie needed to be 2 hours long. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, let's face it. How are you going to kill people in the beginning of movies? But What, you just killed everybody and the movie's over in 10 minutes? Overall, just see the movie for yourself. Don't just take my word for it and tell me. Let's see, how hard you were laughing afterwards. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Another person says, one person says, Katie says, the reviews promise a fresh take, jaw-dropping twist, and a revamped franchise worthy of an entire new generation. Actually, there was a jaw-dropping twist. This movie, unlike most of the movies which had 1 or 2 killers, this one had 3 of them. Maybe 5 if you include Jason and Greg in the beginning, but they were unofficial killers. So take them away. You had Wayne, Ethan, and Quinn. That was a jaw-dropping twist. 3 killers, 3. But again, this is coming from a biased take. I mean, like I keep saying, I'm a Scream fan, so almost everything about these movies excites me. So not everybody feels that way. And if you're not into Scream, you don't get it, and it's not for you, that's okay. I wasn't expecting a perfect movie by any means, and I'm pretty unpicky with the Scream sequels. Hey, as long as I have fun and feel scared of a scene or two, isn't that the point? However, this movie fails to produce a genuinely scare, will haunt you after the movie scene throughout its 2 hours, and I'm a watch through the fingers kind of gal. Perhaps most disappointingly, even the opening scene lacks the suspense and horror that defines the Scream franchise, being quick, predictable, and lacking that edge of your seat pace and character symbiosis. But look, again, I would say this. If you're not that much into Scream, maybe some stuff was like, yep, somebody's going to come out. Yep, somebody's going to get killed. As a person who's a Scream fan, as I'm watching this stuff, I'm like, okay, some of it is predictable, some is unpredictable. So when you look at the opening scene on Scream 6, it's like, okay, Jason was in his apartment and he got a call from Ghostface. He was thinking it was Greg. And we as the audience are looking at this, like we as the Scream fans are looking at this and we're saying, yeah, we know that this is Ghostface, but when is he going to pop up? Where is he going to pop up? How's this going to turn out? And where is Greg? Is Greg still alive, or was it really Greg and he was pranking him? Or there was just a number of questions about it. So some stuff you could assume, others you can't. So those are a lot of so that kind of sums up the 1-star reviews on this movie. And I gotta say, in my own opinion, I think some people kind of tend to overthink some of this stuff. But again, it doesn't mean that their opinion is more or less valid than ours. At the end of the day, all movies share the same thing, which is we watch them, we either really like them or we really dislike them. It's like they're either awesome or they suck, or anywhere in the middle. Like, oh, it was pretty good, it was all right, or I wasn't a big fan of it, not that, or in the middle, it just basically was all right. That means half the movie was good, half of it wasn't so good. You can say that about any genre, whether it's horror, drama, comedy, action, thriller, suspense, psychological, whatever it may be, romance. So, I mean, that's what I want to say about that. So, you tell me what you think of Scream 6, and I assume most of my horror fans have seen it by now, but in case you haven't, go check it out, and you tell me what you think. I think it gets 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. I give it a perfect 10. So, like and subscribe. I got more coming.